And then like I sat there just yelling because I was mad that I couldn't kill myself. And so I said,
Shane was quiet, silly, fun, competitive.
I remember he has always loved sports, loved to compete. When he was little, like if I wasn't playing with him, he was playing by himself.
I started playing football really young. I want to say probably 7, 8 years old.
From that moment on, he never hesitated to go to practice. He'd sleep in his uniform because he was so excited about the games.
My dad was a college football player. You know, as a kid, you always want to follow in your dad's footsteps no matter what he's doing, so it was just kind of naturally something that I wanted to do.
He was always keeping up with his older brother, so I think that helped him advance a little more athletically than a lot of kids his age.
He was always chasing me, and if I was 8 and he was 6, or if I was 10 and he was 8, like he wasn't quite to where I was yet because I had 2 years on him, but he was way ahead of where I was when I was 8. So I think that really helped him take strides athletically, and yeah, he was always competing with guys 1, 2, 3 years older than.
A strike to Shane Porter, breaks the tackle, and then he is gone. 70-yard touchdown time.
My high school career was definitely up and down. I started off my freshman year going to the same high school as my brother, and as soon as I got there, I was labeled as Little Porter. I was always in his shadow and never really given a chance to be myself.
I was like, oh, here comes another Porter, and he's actually a little bit bigger. And so it was like, man, like, what can he do? I think it was good in the fact that he was able to excel, but I do think even from an early age, he probably had a lot of pressure on himself.
And that kind of put me in a really dark spot, and that's kind of when the depression that I'd been living with started to come about, like where it was noticeable for my family and friends. Like I didn't want to do anything.
He was probably harder on himself than anybody. And that was kind of the mold that, you know, it's like he wanted to be perfect all the time.
Probably felt overlooked or felt like he had to perform exactly the same when in reality, we know that God created two very different human beings.
I quit football my freshman year, and so then I transferred schools and kind of fell back in love with the game of football. Kind of got a new opportunity to be myself.
At the time, I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want him to go to a different high school. I wanted to play next to my brother on Friday night. But seeing the impact that it had after he left, I'm so glad that he did. He got to be himself, and like he got to create his own image and who he was, and it had nothing to do with me. I'm proud of him for doing that and taking those steps, and it was, again, I wasn't a huge fan of it at the time, but it was really beneficial for him, I think.
Being able to come into my own as a high school football player, I ended up becoming the starting quarterback, started getting noticed, and that's when like the dream of playing college football really, I could sense was attainable, and it was right there.
And I kind of told him, I said, look, just put the film out there. Odds are you're going to be a receiver in college anyway. And then he had a really good year at receiver, so that's where I've always felt like he was going to play somewhere.
As a kid, I always wanted to go play football at Kansas State. My brother was playing at Kansas State. My dad played there. My parents went there. So I always grew up a K-State fan, and Kansas State gave me an opportunity to walk on. And it was kind of a no-brainer for me because I felt like I could play at that level. I'd always dreamed about getting the opportunity, whether it was scholarship or walk-on. And so when I finally got that opportunity, it meant the whole world to me, and yeah, I took it.
But we watched all the games together. We did it, everything. And I knew that was where, they wanted to be if the opportunity arose. These were the same two little guys that had their little K-State uniforms playing in the backyard. So yeah, it was a dream come true.
My biggest hope was that it was his decision to go and that he would create his own story, not feel like he had to do it for someone else.
Just because of the journey that Seth had through K-State, he always just like put his head down and kept working no matter what. And I think it was expected of Shane to not try something new, but just to like put his head down and go to work regardless of what's happening.
His whole life it was, do I want to follow in Seth's footsteps again? And I know that was part of the decision. And I know it was the fact that our dad played here. So I was already a legacy. Was he going to be the next Porter to come and walk on at K-State and, you know, and earn a spot and prove that he can play at this level? But I also knew there was part of him that wanted to kind of blaze his own trail.
It was hard for me to break away from the shadow of who my brother was as a player and try to create an identity for myself.
When he went off to college, we knew that there was still the possibility that there would be seasons that would be really hard for him.
But then you're like, okay, he's got a protector up there, you know, and his brother. And then there's times it wasn't easy, but that's just how, you know, a brother takes care of the brother.
It's weird to say, but I think I've like always was depressed. Like growing up, like I would always just think about like killing myself. It took me so long to realize that's not a normal thought. And so I'd gotten so good at hiding it. That became my normal. When football wasn't going good, I'd get real down because that's who I was. I was a football player. And so when you're not seeing the field as much and you're not the star player anymore and you don't know who you are off the field, it becomes, I put myself in a very dark place because the one thing I had identified myself as was a good football player, and I felt like I was no longer a good football player, and I had a lot of expectations, not being good enough on the field, feeling I let people down for not being a good football player. I felt like I wasn't a good person off the field. Just nothing I did in life felt like I could do it right. I was feeding myself all these lies that I didn't even know I was feeding myself. It's just negative thoughts over and over again that you replay in your head.
I just felt like there was something that he wasn't uncovering and sharing with us, but I honestly didn't know how to handle it, so I just kept asking a lot of questions instead of listening. So with that regard, it was really hard to sit back and watch him continue down a path where we would see some really extreme highs and really extreme lows and not know what to do.
We, try to talk to him about getting help and talking to counselors, and I told him stories where I had to go and talk to people. They can uncover stuff about yourself that you may never even realize.
It was a hard time because I just wanted to do something, to take something off his plate. There wasn't much I could do aside from just let him know that I was there and offer to help in any way that I could. That was our first team meeting back in January of 2023. Looking around, and Shane's not there. And that was not like him to not be there, and it was definitely not like him to not let anyone know that he wasn't going to be there.
I'd always thought about killing myself, and I'd been able to push it off. I'd just be sad, and then one of the days I just kind of snapped.
I've been alongside him for a long time as he's battled this, and I know when he's not in a great spot, and I knew he wasn't in a great spot, so when he wasn't there, my stomach sank.
Years and years of being depressed kind of washed over me, and I was just kind of done. I just didn't want to keep going.
And I just knew something was wrong. I drove over to his house, still not responding. Luckily, I knew their garage door was open, run in, run through the house. He's not there. Then I leave, I get back in the truck, and that's when I actually called my mom and just said, hey, Shane's not in a good spot, and I don't know where he is.
I started talking before I could say anything. He was like, Mom, this is different.
And so I ended up on the side of a road somewhere, just in the middle of nowhere. I was sitting behind the wheel with just tears. I just wanted to end it all. I stared at the barrel of my gun for over an hour. And I go to load it, and none of my ammo's there. And I still don't know what happened to it, if it had fallen out of my truck or not, but it saved my life, because if there was ammo, I would have pulled the trigger. I sat there for a while, just yelling, just punching the ground, wanted to end it all, but I couldn't. Somehow built up the courage to text my brother. I texted him, I said, come get me. The first time in my life that I'd ever expressed that I needed help.
He sent me his location, and I looked on the map, and he was like on the other side of some railroad tracks by like a river.
We got the location, and Seth stepped on the gas, and we hauled to him. The car ride to him was like so silent.
I was trying to prepare myself for seeing anything, but I was just praying that he didn't make a bad decision. And I didn't know what I was gonna do if I showed up and my brother was gone.
I think I remember trying to like pray out loud. God, whatever we're about to pull up on, like you're already there. Trying to lay it at the Lord's feet, but being so terrified.
We get to the location, and there's a shotgun laying out on the ground. Shane and I aren't like super physical with each other. It was the longest hug I've ever given her.
The call that I got from Emma when they found him, what she described that they drove up to and saw, and when he was found, they just fell into each other's arms and just sobbed.
I wanted him to know I couldn't go on live without him, especially if it went out like that.
And so I stepped away from football for a month or two, and then Coach Kleinman allowing me back on the team when the time was right, being around the guys and falling in love with the game again, and just knowing that it is a game was a huge step for me. And it allowed me to go be me again, which I hadn't been really my true self in years.
As he's growing older, I think he's come to the realization that you don't have to be the best at everything. I mean, you're not going to be perfect at everything.
You can say a lot of things about Shane from any aspect, sports, TikTok, golf, whatever you want. One thing no one can never, ever say about Shane is he ain't tough. He's the toughest dude I've ever been around. The battles that he's had to face mentally and the injuries and things he's had to face physically, he's a fighter. And I'm proud to have a brother that's a fighter.
Whether it's depression or grief or anxiety or anger or whatever state of mental health that takes you to such a lonely, dark spot, it becomes paralyzing.
You'll hear me just say I want them to be happy, which is any father wants for their children. But there's a lot of fear for his future. I just want to make sure he stays on the right path.
Yeah, my message to people out there is don't be afraid to check in on people, and then continue to check in on them even if they don't want you to. And my message to Shane is I'm proud of you and I love you. And I'm thankful you're here. I wouldn't want any other brother. I'm just grateful to have him.
The biggest message I want to send is just it's okay to not be okay. And life is worth living even when you don't want to live. When you're in this depressive state, you feel like you're alone, but you're not. There's so many people who are going through it. Depression's a fight with your mind every day, and you have to choose every single day to win that fight. I still have days. It's not like it's a magic thing that you can just get rid of. Choosing to win the fight versus depression, win that constant battle, and keep moving forward is a huge thing.